I would like to call back to order the May 22nd, 2018 meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Supervisors Frost. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Natoli.
Here.
Cerna.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Item 54, you are acting as the Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento. Approval of final tax-exempt bonds and loan documents for Southwind Court Apartments.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board.
Morning.
My name is Nicole Brown, and I'm a housing finance analyst with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency.
Oh, could you raise
The report?
Raise the podium a little bit more.
Sorry. Thank you.
That ought to do it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. The report before you requests final approval of tax-exempt bond and loan documents for Southwind Court Apartments.
I'm sorry, we missed your introduction of yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Nicole Brown.
Nicole.
And I'm a housing
Thank
finance analyst with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. So again, the report before you requests final approval of tax-exempt bond and loan documents for Southwind Court Apartments. Previously, on December 5th, 2017, the Housing Authority approved the intent to issue mortgage revenue bonds to provide acquisition, construction, and permanent financing for Southwind Court. The Board of Supervisors also approved a $4 million loan for the project. After receiving these approvals, the Housing Authority submitted an application for tax-exempt bonds to the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, and the developer submitted an application for low-income housing tax credits to the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. CIDLAC approved the issuance of bonds, and CTCAC approved the allocation of tax credits, both in March 2018. As some background, Southwind Court was built in 1988 and is located...
Nicole, I'm sorry. Could you, those entering the chambers, please keep your voices down? We can't hear the speaker over your conversation. Thank you, Nicole. Go ahead.
Yeah. Southwind Court was originally built in 1988 and is located in the Florin area. The 88-unit property consists of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The developer, Levy Affiliated, has purchased and will substantially rehabilitate the property. The existing 70 affordable units will be maintained, and the remaining 17 market rate units will be converted into affordable units. So all the units will be upgraded to include new kitchens, bathrooms, windows, flooring, heating, and air conditioning. Exterior upgrades include siding, paint, roofing, balcony enclosures, stairways, and garage doors. Upgrades to the existing amenities include a major expansion of the community room, upgrade of 1 pool, a new playground area, and landscape improvements. Also, new interior lighting and security cameras will be installed throughout the property. So in closing, staff recommends approving the tax-exempt bond and loan documents for the rehabilitation of Southwind Court. And staff is available to address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions to the speaker, or none? Oh, it just came up. Sorry, Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole, so on the improvements to the exterior, so when you say new landscaping, it has the transmission core that runs through there for the high power line, so you have that setback. What will, what's going to be done in that area there? You have some lawn area and so forth. Obviously, there are garages for a portion of the units that are served by that. And you're going to convert some of those garages as well, as I understand, for community room expansion. So just
yes.
A little more verbal detail. I mean, there wasn't very many pictures included. There was actually only 1 or 2 in our packet. So
directly around the power lines, there is going to be a new fence.
Okay.
Separating the power lines from
the
landscaping
the tower,
and the parking area. Other than that, let me look to the scope here. Yes, and as you said, the garages will be converted. 2 garages will be converted.
There's more than 2 garages. Not every unit had a
room.
garage, but there were.
Yes. Yeah, but only 2 of those will be converted into the community room.
But the landscaping, so what enhancements, again, from the streetscape on Power End Road there, what are you going to see that's going to be different besides putting fencing around the tower itself and or converting the garages, because there's that large setback. So what's going to be different in there?
So the majority of the landscape improvements aren't actually...
They're not there. They're going to be around the units themselves to the rear?
More internal to the property. There isn't that much landscaping on the exterior outside of the parking.
I would just say I think that you know, the appearance from the street and whether they're the affordable units or market rate units is not unimportant. I know that Supervisor Kennedy certainly is working across the way there with Department of Transportation to bring sidewalks to areas that don't have them, that are immediately across the street. And I think it's important with this upgrade that, again, certainly, you know, there is landscaping there, but that if there's any enhancements, it would be nice. I know you're limited on planting underneath the power lines, but it's a little stark in between the units there, and I would just suggest that as you work with the developer that we might want to look at something there that would, you know, provide a fresher look to it. Obviously, you're looking at the livability of the units themselves, and but we're going to make a major investment here on this property, so I guess I would just suggest that we take a look at that as a part of this and working with the development party on it. The only other question I had then, you're going to convert the remaining market rate units to regulated units, and will the agreements then, in this case, are they going to be for 55 years, or are they for a different term, and do you extend the term on the currently regulated units?
Yes, so it would be a new term of 55 years.
For all the units?
For all of the units, because they would all be affordable now.
Okay. All right, very good.
Anyone else? Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, with that, first I want to thank staff for just staying on this to answer Supervisor Natoli's questions. In my mind, one of the things you're going to notice from Power In is you're not going to be looking at buildings which are falling down. You know, so it's
that will be a big improvement.
huge improvement for the area, and also an addition of affordable housing, additional affordable housing in the area, which, as we all know, is badly needed. So with that, I would move for approval.
Second.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote. Item 55 is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing, request for approval of tax-exempt bonds by the California Enterprise Development Authority for the benefit of Verge Center for the Arts.
Good morning.
Yois Young from the County Executive Office. Today's Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing is a request from Verge Center for the Arts for the California Development Authority, of which the County of Sacramento is a member. The hearing is a request to approve a tax-exempt bond issuance in an amount not to exceed $2 million. Verge Center for the Arts is a California nonprofit public benefit corporation and an organization which provides contemporary art and art resources to the Sacramento region through a combination of exhibits, low or no-cost artist workspace, and educational programming. Before Verge Center of the Arts can issue these bonds, federal law requires that a public hearing be held and approval obtained from the jurisdiction in which a project is located, in this case, the County of Sacramento. Proceeds of this debt issuance will be used to fund building construction and improvements at the property located at 625 S Street. These tax-exempt bonds are payable solely by Verge Center for the Arts and are not a direct obligation of either the California Enterprise Development Authority or the County of Sacramento. County staff is recommending the board to conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolution that approves the issuance of bonds by California Enterprise Development Authority on behalf of Verge Center for the Arts. Today I have representatives from Verge Center of the Arts, Liv Moe, Executive Director, and also Helen Scheibmeyer from California Enterprise Development Authority, if there should be any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Would you like to speak? Sure. Okay, when you're finished, would you fill out a speaking request?
Yes. Madam Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors and County staff, my name is Liv Moe, and I'm the founding director of Verge Center for the Arts. Verge, a California nonprofit public benefit corporation, has requested that the California Enterprise Development Authority issue revenue obligations in the maximum principal amount of $2 million. The proceeds of the obligations will be used to refinance and finance the cost of construction and the last round of renovations needed for our facility located at 625 S Street. Verge consists of art galleries, art studios, classroom space, and offices, as well as a printmaking studio. Last year, Verge was the recipient of the county's TOT grant to support our annual county-wide open studio program. All of us at Verge want to thank you for supporting this important regional program, and with your support, SAC Open Studios has grown from 150 participating artists last year to over 200 this year. More than half of those artists are outside of the central city limits. We hope to see all of you in September. I would like to thank each of you once again for your support of Verge's request to issue obligations using the California Enterprise Development Authority Bond Conduit Program. This bond financing will enable our organization to complete the improvements to our building. In closing, we would like to once again thank the County of Sacramento, the California Enterprise Development Authority, and Pacific Premier Bank for all of their support. Let me know if I can answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
Thank you.
I see none. Okay, I will close the public hearing. Is there oh, I'm sorry. It just came up, Phil, so would you like to make a comment?
If there's no further speakers, I'd like to move the item.
Okay.
Second.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Madam Chair, before we move on, I'd just like to acknowledge in the audience today, we have a former Sacramento City Council member and former member of the California State Assembly, Mr. Phil Eisenberg. I just want to
Former mayor.
Yeah, former mayor as well, yeah. So, man of many talents, but I know he's here in support of this item, but I just wanted to acknowledge Phil's presence here today. So.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenberg, for being here. Okay. Next item, please.
Item 56 is the presentation of the 2017 through 2021 California Child and Family Services Review System Improvement Plan.
Good morning. I am Michelle Callejas, and I am currently serving as Acting Director of the new Department of Child, Family, and Adult Services. And to my right here...
Sure. Good morning. Marlon Yarber, Assistant Chief Probation Officer, here for Chief Seal.
Hi, Marlon.
Morning.
And we are here at your request to discuss our county system improvement plan. If you recall, this item came before you in February, and although you approved it, Supervisor Natoli asked that we come back to provide a little bit more information because our system improvement plan is packed with data, a lot of great information. And then Supervisor Cerna also had a question about a particular probation data point. So we are both here today to give you a little more information. Mr. Yarber recently came to the juvenile side, so he is less familiar with the process, so he gave me the opportunity to provide a little bit more of the context. So the California Child and Family Services Review System is It's basically a child welfare outcomes and accountability system that was passed by the legislature back in 2001 and then enacted in 2004. It's an enhancement of the federal child welfare oversight and accountability system that is also mandated across all 50 states. So the feds monitor the states, and then here in California, the Department of Social Services monitors child welfare and probation. And both systems focus on performance indicators that speak to child safety, permanency, and well-being. And again, it includes foster children that are either involved in child welfare or probation. So we are going to try to make this simple and explain how the system improvement plan fits into this process. We will both talk about the areas of focus that child welfare is focusing on and probation, talk to you about our strategies, and then hopefully provide any other information you might need. Oops, is it this? There we go. So there are two components to the California Child and Family Services review. The first is the county self-assessment, and the second is the county system improvement plan. The county self-assessment is a comprehensive review of child welfare and juvenile probation practices, and it also includes a peer review, focus groups, and stakeholder engagement. We started our countywide assessment process back in mid-2016. The peer review gives us the opportunity to select a performance indicator in which we're not performing very well. And we work with the Department of Social Services to identify which one we want to do a deeper dig on. So they identified in coordination with Department of Social Services, both child welfare and probation, identified reentry as an item that we wanted to have other counties come in and basically give us consultation. So we invited 6 counties. They did comprehensive case reviews focused strictly on reentry. They analyzed the data they collected, and then they made recommendations to us about what we could consider to improve that. We also then, as part of the stakeholder process, we held focus groups with child welfare staff, probation staff, both line level all the way up to executive management. We held focus groups with resource parents or foster parents, bio parents, foster youth, relative caregivers to get their input as to how child welfare and probation could do better. So all of the data that is collected then informs our system improvement plan, which is basically a 5-year work plan that identifies strategies and milestones to improve outcomes for the children and families we serve. So we're early on in implementation. We will continue to adapt any strategies, make adjustments if they're not working, and then move forward as we try to improve outcomes for children and families. So this next slide focuses on the 4 areas that CPS is focused on. And I don't know how familiar you are with these points. I'll give just a brief explanation. So the first is recurrence of maltreatment. If you look over to the last column, that's the national standard or goal. So we should be at least 9.1. Right next to it is the state's performance at 9.4. So when we started our system improvement plan, the time frame that set our baseline, we were at 10.2%. The desired direction is to go down, right? We want less recurrence of maltreatment. We went up the last period. So recurrence of maltreatment is children who had a substantiated allegation in a year. So say this, in 2015, we had X number of children in care. We substantiated an allegation of abuse or neglect. A year later, they look at this same group of kids to see who had another substantiated allegation within that year, right? So we want fewer children to experience another incident of abuse. So although here it says we had 10.8%, that was our latest in our SIP plan, we are currently at 10.9%. So we are going down. We still need to get down to at least 9%, but we are headed in the right direction. The second area is permanency in 12 months for children in care 24 months or longer. So this is basically kids who have been in foster care for more than 2 years. And
I'm sorry, Michelle, if I could just before you get too far. So you're going down, so you went from 10.2 to 10.8. So how is that going down?
the 10.8 was the point in time that was in the plan that you guys approved in February.
Yeah.
So our latest performance, just so that you know, we're heading in the right direction. We're now at 10.1%.
10.1. I thought you said 10.9.
I heard 10.9 too.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, 10.1.
Okay,
yeah.
so you are, and if I just ask you one other question, these are all percentages, but could you, just by way of background, and again, it may not be a static number, but how many children are we talking about here? What's the pool? So when we say 10%, of what is the number? Is it 2,500? Is it 4,000? Is it 8,000? Again, it may fluctuate, but so of total number of kids, Because then the percentage then has some relevance to the number.
Right. The N matters. So in 2016, our denominator, the number of kids, was 4,341.
Okay.
And then in 2017, we're heading down, which is a good thing, 3,738.
And then if I relate what you show on the chart, that the recurrence of maltreatment is that of that pool, whether it's 4,400 or 3,700, that roughly 10% of those 350 to 400 plus or minus then are showing situations that come back where there's been a reoccurrence of maltreatment. So
exactly.
And that could be abuse or neglect. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
And let me just make a statement for all these indicators, right? So we're saying we want to at least get to the national standard of 9.1. But ideally, we want to get to 0, right? We don't want any kids to experience, additional incidents of abuse or neglect. We don't want them to experience the first incident. So these are goals we're trying to get to, understanding that we don't want any kids to experience this.
Well, and just to your point, if you're still having 350 to 450 kids, depending upon where you picked in the the calendar of years and so forth, that's still a fairly sizable number of kids that are then being re-abused, re-neglected. And I don't know if there's multiples of that, but that's just to your point. The goal ought to be 0, and we ought to get there as quick as we can. So
yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
So the second indicator is children who have been in care for longer than 2 years. These are often the kids that people refer to as they're languishing in care. And you can see that we want that to go up, right? So kids who have been in care longer, we still want to get them to permanency. When I say permanency, either reunification, adoption, or legal guardianship. And the older they get, the longer they spend time in care, the less likely they are to achieve permanence. So this is an area that we are focused on. You can see that this is an arrow we want to see go up. The national standard is 30.3. We were at 28.3. We improved to 27.6. We have been working really hard in this area, and particularly with our 4E waiver investments and some internal practices we put into place. So our latest data show that we're up to 32.2% of kids who are in care longer than 2 years are achieving permanence. So we've exceeded the national standard, and we believe that this is the first time we've done that in Sacramento. We've historically been below this mark. So we're exceeding both the state and the national performance. And as we know, we can't look away. So we're continuing to invest to make sure that we keep getting those kids to a permanent family. The next is re-entry into foster care. And this is another one of the measures that looks at a year. So kids that come into care in 2015 and they exit to either reunification, legal guardianship, and then they re-enter care within the following year. And so we are trying to reduce the number of reentries. You can see the national standard is 8.3. We were at 14.7. We decreased slightly in 2016 Q4, but it's not statistically significant. We are making some gains in this. We're currently at 13.8. So we're seeing improvement, but we still have a ways to go to get down to 8%. And again, we want this to be 0. It is very traumatic for children to come into the child welfare system, and it just compounds their trauma when they get to go home or find a family and then end up coming back. So we're committed to continuing that improvement.
Michelle, can I just ask you, why is the data there so old? I mean, we're almost, you're 3.5 to 4, almost 5 years old in some cases. The other columns don't show, and I know you're getting some current stats. But why is the data so old there?
So it's because it's looking at that you have to have 2 full years. So our latest was January to December of 2015. And so it's that whole measurement. They look at a year cohort and then the following year.
All right, thank you.
And we pull all our data from UC Berkeley's website. They refresh their data every quarter, and then annually there's a big input. So there's a lot of data there. So the last one we're looking at is placement stability. And placement stability is a rate that basically tells us how likely is it that a child's going to experience a placement change. Anytime a child moves placement, it can add further trauma. And so our desire is to have as few placement changes as possible. The national goal is 4.12. We're at 5.2. Our current performance, pretty much the same. Although lately, our latest performance indicator has gone the wrong direction. It went up to 5.36. So we are delving into this particular performance indicator a little more deeply. We're not quite sure what's happening in that area. We do know that we are seeing some kids that are coming in with higher level needs, and these are the kids where their trauma is more pronounced. They are externalizing their behaviors, meaning they're acting it out. They can be aggressive. There may be substance abuse issues. And so we have care providers who give 7-day notices because they're just not equipped to deal with the behaviors. And so then we find a placement. They may fail out of that placement, and then we find another placement. But again, each placement change just adds further trauma to a child. There was an earlier item on your consent regarding a training and TA consultation with the Department of Social Services. They're bringing in a noted national expert on recruitment and retention of families, and we believe that if we can bring in the families, equip them, that will help with this placement stability piece. So I'm going to let Mr. Yarber talk about the probation outcome areas.
Great, thank you again, and good morning again. So let me make sure I click to the next slide. So I think it's right to ask questions as it relates to the data and sort of the progress, if you will, around these issues. I think, in doing my own research and trying to prep for this, one of the tasks, I think, for all the systems essentially locally is to ensure that we're transparent with how we're doing, but that we're also accountable to ourselves with regard to our plan. So really appreciate the fact that there are questions about this. Doesn't make it necessarily any easier as it relates to some of the data, as they're hard to understand, both for myself probably and for you, but also just in terms of just wanting to see that progress over time. So the first data element as it relates to probation outcomes is within regard to permanency. And that permanency definition, I think, is almost, if not the same as the one Michelle described. So it's for all the children who entered care in that 12-month period, what % discharged to permanency? And we define permanency the same way. Either they were unified with their families, they were adopted, there's guardianship. I think there's also reference to extended home trials. But really the goal is to reunify them with their birth families, essentially, because that's where the most stable network or opportunity exists, if you will. So for permanency for probation, you see the desired direction is up there. We are going up ever so slightly. There are challenges with regards to permanency for probation youth. In this case, some of the things that staff pointed out to me are within regard to the types of care or treatment that someone may receive. So for instance, our juvenile sex offender population, the length of those programs and treatment often extend well beyond a year, if not to 2 years, which makes it a challenge for permanency within 12 months. Additionally, the AB-12 extended foster care youth who are getting services after they've reached the age of majority also would then push them beyond that time period. And then just sort of looking at placement, I think in general, it's often a traumatic thing in and of itself to send a youth out of home to, some other caring adult to provide a service or provide a warm home, and youth often run. And so we're often in this point where we're trying to track them down, they go into warrant status, and it just really sort of extends that time period for us. So again, another challenge.
If you could pause, Mr. Cerna has a question.
Sure.
Thank you. And maybe I'm going to beat you to it here in terms of what appears to me a pretty gross distinction between even our performance level as it improves ever so slightly and the state performance measure, as well as the national standard or goal that's there. I always get very interested in any metric that's used to gauge almost anything that we do as a county or as an agency, when you have such a wide gap between a statewide measure and where we currently sit. I mean, even if you look at the next row down, looking at the least restrictive placement measurement, we're much closer on a percentage basis to the state. So what accounts, Marlon, for just the wide difference between our current performance measure as it relates to permanency in 12 months compared to the state and the national?
So this is a challenge, Supervisor, as stated, as it relates to sort of the national standard or goal. California, as I say, or my kids say it sometimes at home, this is our go-to move in many instances in sending many kids out of home. We've changed that quite a bit. I think today there are 85 youth from Sacramento County as it relates to the probation department placed out of home. Just, 7-8 years ago, that number was probably 3 times that, so we've made tremendous strides in that regard. There are still youth, however, who are placed out of home. And also, when we sort of dive deeper into those numbers, what we see, actually, there's even more of an increase as it relates to the rate, if you will, where you to apply a rate and looking at that population. So I referenced 85 youth out of home at this time. Looking at the number, I think at the point where the calculations were done, there were over 115 youth placed out of home. So we've actually increased beyond what our goals were. I think our goals were 5% over that period, and we've exceeded that quite a bit, but it does still remain a target for us.
If you were to have another column that had, I don't know, the top 5 county surrogates, or the counties which kind of most closely represent the condition that we have here in Sacramento County, that being a county of approximately 1.5 million, a county that is very urbanized in the unincorporated area, say for instance Alameda County, which is oftentimes cited as a county for comparative purposes for a lot of different things. How do you think we'd look?
I think we're middle of the pack, if not near the top. There's one county, I believe, that may be doing something better than us, but they are doing something entirely different as it relates to their detention facility.
Which
I think
county?
San Bernardino County, if I'm not mistaken. My staff are nodding yes. But I think they treat their kids locally and they house them in juvenile hall, which is something we're also wrestling with as really sort of the best setting for our youth.
This is a format to inform the board and the public that will be ongoing, will it not?
I believe so.
So could we add that? Would it be that much work to add? We'd leave it up to you to figure out what those counties are, but I think that would be helpful.
I believe we have that information. You have it as well, comparison in terms of counties of like size.
Yeah, because we have 58 counties in the state, and when I see 24.7% as the state performance measure, I have to read into that could be all over the place, right. And you can, that's kind of an average, and so I'd rather understand the median, so to speak, when you got a fewer number of counties that are similar to Sacramento County.
Correct. I believe we can do that. Add that for the next report, if you will.
Thanks.
Before you start again, Mr. Natoli has a question.
Just in adding information, I think in light of sort of my question to Michelle, but and Marlon to you two, I think it would be helpful. Again, it may not be for the state reporting to their indicators, but this percentage then doesn't necessarily tell the full story, because I think when you look at reduction both in incarcerated youth, but certainly relative to the numbers, and certainly to the numbers of being served, those that would be in probation or juvenile justice system, I think it would be important, again, as much from CPS, but certainly for probation, to actually have an idea what those numbers were in those time frames. And so, because, a 14% of 100 is different than 14% of 1,000 as it relates to the numbers anyway. It's still a percentage, and so I guess I'd like to see if we could do that, because I think it tells a fuller story. People can draw their own conclusions. It certainly gives us the guidance for doing better or examining what we're doing to improve upon that. But I think that's important, because to your response to Supervisor Cerna's inquiry, I think those are numbers, at least for reporting to this board. And again, I'm hopeful to see this annually to our board in this fashion with a workshop, and to have some more information included. It may not be the reporting that we give to the state or to the national, but it tells the story here in Sacramento County, so this board and our community can judge for themselves about how well we're doing, not compared against state and or national average, but certainly for our community. So I think that would be important. So.
And let me just add, perhaps to that same point, in my notes here, and my staff would probably kick me if I don't mention it, as it relates to Q3 of year 2017, when we use that rate, we see actually an increased rate of 18.3%. So to your point, I think it's well taken to look at sort of more apples to apples with regards to that denominator.
Thanks.
Moving on to the least restrictive placement, and again, educating myself, this is where the initial placement out of home is a group home setting, as opposed to relatives or other foster families. This is, I think, also where waiver services and funds have been very beneficial to our department as we add supports to many of the families who are experiencing issues as it relates to our system. There are challenges here as well. You see, we really have barely, actually haven't moved in the right direction, but still maintaining the same rate, if you will, from the prior reporting period. There are several challenges here also in that many of the surrounding states, I'm told, do not recognize the probation departments as placing agencies, and so that eliminates essentially, us saying there's an aunt or uncle in the state next door who maybe is willing and ready to take the youth into their home, but we essentially cannot do that. Additionally, the family finding process is also very onerous. You may have those families who are ready and willing to do something, take on foster youth, but then when they're met with many of the requirements, it becomes a non-starter essentially. And so just a little bit of insight, you probably would expect the more typical background check, but that's really not all. So there's a complete application that has to be completed by those families. They have to attend an orientation. They've got to pass a health screening. Everyone has to have first aid and CPR. There's also a comprehensive psychosocial assessment of each adult member in the household. There's a home evaluation that has to be done, and then there's also training as it relates to all of those families. So again, you may get someone essentially to the door, and then they realize, oh, I've got to go through all this, and they may then sort of have second thoughts about completing the process. This is where, as Michelle referenced, the national expert, Denise Goodman, will be able to hopefully give us some additional insights and consultative services on how we can improve essentially our family finding and perhaps streamline, if there are ways to streamline that process of requirements for families. That's it. Turn it back.
Okay, so now I'm going to just give you a little bit more information about what we're going to do to try to move the needle in the right direction on all our measures. So the first is the child and family team meetings. Let me back up. So as we develop these strategies, these were developed in collaboration with our community partners. So after we did the county self-assessment, we said these are the areas we want to focus on, and then we established different work groups to focus on the 4 areas. So we've got community partners, Child Abuse Prevention Center, staff, all working together. They meet in their distinct groups. I think they've met 9 or 10 times over the year to really refine and develop an implementation plan for these strategies. So again, we're early on in implementation. But the first is the child and family team meetings, and this is also a requirement of continuum of care reform. And basically, the child and family team meeting brings the child and family together with the goal of including their input as to where they see their family strengths, where they see the challenges. We also share where we see the strengths and and challenges. They can invite maybe if they're linked to mental health, they can bring their clinician, they can bring a pastor, a teacher, a child's coach, whoever it is that is willing to come forward and help support the family. And then we all work together to develop a comprehensive service plan. If probation is also involved with the child, they are at the child and family team meeting so that we can ensure that we communicate and coordinate services and care. So we started this process by doing a competitive bid process. We're contracting out to do child and family team meetings because the number that we're expecting to do each month is anywhere between 390 to about 480 is what we've projected. So we're contracting out for some of them, but we also have a staff of 5 to 8 who are focused on implementing prevention child and family team meetings. So we're using these as a way to reduce recurrence of maltreatment and reentry into foster care. The notion being before we close out a referral or a case, we have equipped the family, we've connected them to community supports, to natural supports, so that when they run into stressors, we all do, they have some supports to go to.
If you could pause there for a second.
Sure.
Supervisor Kennedy has a question.
So we recently on First Five got a report from Birth and Beyond showing how the services provided in Birth and Beyond are trending to decrease the amount of recidivism at CPS. Mm-hmm. Would that fit into part of this slide here?
So where we work with our Birth and Beyond programs is we connect them to the services as an aftercare plan if they have kids that are of that age group and they can benefit from those services. So what we would do is we invite their team members from whatever family resource center to be part of the child and family team meeting, again, if the family wants that. And that way when we close out, they've already connected with the family resource center staff member. So again, should they run into issues, there's other people to help support them so that we don't have to get involved again. Yeah, okay. So they're a part of the collaborative team.
Big collaborative, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the second strategy we developed was intensive family finding. Again, this is something that we have found to be very successful with implementation of the 4E waiver. What we're looking at is trying to understand how can we use it even to a greater extent, but also look at how is it that we can strengthen the efforts that our social workers do up front to identify relatives and families. So we're still working on that piece of it. We have rededicated 3 social workers to emergency response that are focused specifically on relative engagement. So if we can identify a relative right up front, we do the emergency background process and get them placed with the relative while then they get approved to become a resource parent. And then the last is increased support for resource families. As you all know, we have a great need for resource parents in our community to come forward and provide a loving, caring home for kids in foster care, both in child welfare and in probation. And it's a huge ask. We ask them to love these kids like their own, to include them in the family, and then support them going back home after, oftentimes they've come quite connected. Our kids also have some challenges based on their experiences of abuse and neglect. And so we know that our resource parents need increased support. So what we're looking at here is respite care. We've already developed that part of it and offering our resource parents respite services. We're also already providing trauma-informed training for all our resource parents so they have a better understanding of kind of the reasons behind some of these kids' behaviors, but more importantly, giving them the tools to be able to respond appropriately. And then again, plan on really utilizing the expertise of Denise Goodman to help us with our local recruitment and retention strategies. So one last area of focus, and this is out of order, but this was not in the system improvement plan that you approved in February, but we were asked by the state to add an additional focus area. So it's currently with the state being reviewed. I simply wanted to present it here because it will be coming back before you, probably sometime in August. Once the state approves our strategy, then it'll come to you for final approval. So it's just a lasting part of it. But this is looking at maltreatment in foster care. So these are kids in foster care under our care and supervision who have been harmed.
Could you pause there for a moment, please?
Sure.
Supervisor Natoli?
Yes, so Michelle, when we, we talk in terms of maltreatment or victimization, so what are we talking about here? I mean, without getting into gross details, I mean, is this physical abuse? Is it sexual abuse? Is it emotional abuse? All of the above? Are the allegations that have to be founded? I guess I'm curious what, when we say maltreatment and victimization, what is under those descriptors?
Yeah, great question. So maltreatment in foster care is any substantiated allegation of abuse or neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, severe neglect, and so forth. This indicator has changed over the years. Prior to 2015, the state only looked at maltreatment in foster care by a foster parent, by a caregiver. Now it is a child's in foster care and it's maltreatment by anyone. And so when we saw this go up, it alarmed us, and so we started doing a really deep dive into this. And one of the things that we've identified, so there are a myriad of factors, and we can come back and talk more deeply into it, but sure. There were some kids who were abused while they were on visitation with their families. But they're in foster care. Okay. One of the areas that has shifted for child welfare is that we are now charged with serving sexually exploited children. We implemented protocol in 2015. So September of 2015. So prior to 2015, if we got a referral that a young person, we think she's being prostituted, we would call law enforcement, cross-report to law enforcement. It's not a caregiver that's harming the child. We cross-report, they take care of it. Well, now it's our charge to go out and investigate. So we have kids in foster care who they run from placement and they get exploited. We substantiate abuse now because it's under us. So that's a substantiation. So we have seen that go up.
And it would fall into this category without further definition or explanation, because I think what you're offering then is the detail that's really important to have a fuller understanding of this.
Yeah, the full context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, in 2015, we had one youth that was identified as being sexually exploited, that got victimized, that was a foster youth. The next year, it jumped up to 22 children with 28 different occurrences. So that impacted the data.
I think it's important for future reporting, and again, not to belabor today, but the description that and I think, why trends. Like, it doesn't excuse why things are going up, but it offers explanation. It may be different reporting regimes, but also the fact that, we're taking in kids that, that may have previously been a law enforcement referral, now it's a social worker, maybe law enforcement as well. But I think it's really important to have that understanding. Otherwise, it's just like, so, you've gone up 50% nearly, and number, and what does that mean? So, one last question around this. Then, does it, when they're in foster care, if there are, peers in the home that then, it may or may not be consensual, but still, where there's, situations that occur. That is out, and if that's reported, whether it's of a criminal nature or not, does it then fall in this category as well?
Correct.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you seen an uptick in that relative to teenagers being in the setting?
Oh,
yeah.
No. Not specifically.
Okay, so it's more of the sexually exploited.
Sexually exploited, but also we discovered data entry errors. Huge issue. If we were to correct just for our data entry, our rate would drop to 8.9%. Okay. Again, still high, but it would drop. So we're already focusing on that. We'll come back and provide you more.
Thanks.
So Marlon's going to talk about probation strategies.
I'll just go through these briefly. I don't necessarily need to read the slide to you, obviously. As it relates to improving policies and then training to the policy, those are two things that are really important for us. I referenced earlier youth running away from placement, absconding, and being on the run for some time, and we're strategizing ways we can address that population. We're currently auditing all of the sites, all of the placement sites essentially that we send youth to. There's a staff person that makes a visit to them at regular intervals and reports back. We also have yearly program meetings with all the providers, talk about what our needs are. We host it. We talk about what our goals are. We share information with them as well as amongst other counties as well. That next bullet there, identification of reunification issues through 6 and 9 months. We actually hope to move that up so that the goal is through 3 months, so that we can have those issues well in hand before we get to that point of the youth returning home. And then providing wraparound services as well as reentry services through our reentry programming. Next, as it relates to the least restrictive placement, we're implementing a family finding worksheet. Essentially, it takes a survey of the family, who's available, what they might provide, what their strengths are, who maybe is interested, and provides a good setting for youth to return to. We talked about recruitment of resource families. I think it's been mentioned here a few times, hoping to get some help there. I didn't mention it previously, but we talked about sort of the barriers and challenges, and I mentioned sort of getting those families to the front door and then that onerous process. Well, there's also that connotation of a probation youth. This youth has maybe done something in the community, maybe victimized someone, maybe severely, and that in and of itself can become a game changer and really can change someone's receptivity to taking on our youth. And then lastly there, the utilization of foster family agencies. So the FIPPERS money, I believe, the foster parent recruitment, retention, and support funding helps us in this area, as it provides, I think, one staff person for probation, but it also supports a couple contracts with agencies that are skilled at helping us find families. And that funding, I think, as you may be aware, I believe is going away or going to be cut in half, and so we're going to have to make some hard decisions around how we continue to do this work, continue to knock down essentially that number of youth who are not at home placement, and still maintain the goals that we've stated here today.
So just to wrap up, our next steps are to submit our annual progress report. It's due every May. We're going to add the strategy to address the maltreatment in foster care, get approval on that, and then it'll be coming back before this board. So any questions?
Any further questions? Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. So I have been having some regular conversations with our executive staff, including our chief of probation, about the prospect of very deliberately considering how this county may begin to kind of coalesce an effort around adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, which I think many of you understand is kind of an evolving paradigm to address the needs of families and children across a whole spectrum of agencies and continuums of care. So I guess the overarching question I have is, do you both see the prospect of ACEs as it might evolve here in Sacramento County to be kind of a touchstone for child protective services, probation, even human assistance? Do you see that as a way that might be an additional tool to help us achieve the metrics that we hope we attain?
Yeah, I'll jump in from the child welfare side, absolutely, and we do have staff that attend the Resilient Sacramento meetings and bring back information. I think it can absolutely inform our improvement efforts.
And I'll just add, I think it helps to knock down that denominator as well. If we're paying attention to ACEs up front and looking at how we can support families before a placement decision is made, I think it will absolutely be beneficial.
And for those that don't know what the acronym ACEs is, it's Adverse Childhood Experiences. It incorporates it is intended to mean that there's an application of a survey instrument, a very specific one that has a lot of research and proof behind it in terms of its ability to be somewhat of a predictor of different types of adverse circumstance for both children and young adults. The survey instrument is typically 10 questions. It could have more questions, but you're looking at things like how many times a child has been exposed to violence in the home, how many times a child has been exposed to drug use in the home, how much has been witnessed by a child in terms of domestic violence, those types of things. And there's a whole school of research on it, and I've certainly taken the time to just dabble just a little bit and educate myself, and there's a lot more certainly for this supervisor to learn about it. But so far, from what I've seen, and I've attended a few workshops on the subject, it looks very promising as a very, very helpful tool that I can see really informing the kind of work that we're being asked to review today in terms of the ongoing metrics. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I would just, Madam Chair, just I guess move the staff recommendation. On
it's
this.
a receive and file.
Okay, and we can come back, I guess,
So,
at a future date. So.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
report.
you.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 57 is the review repurposing concept for Sacramento County Boys Ranch and approve lease negotiations with Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive Incorporated.
Good morning. I'm Mike Morris with the Department of General Services. And this morning I'm requesting the board's approval to enter into negotiations with Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive, Inc., a California 501c3 nonprofit public corporation, to discuss the terms of a potential lease for a portion of the Sacramento County Boys Ranch. As you all know, we've made several attempts to repurpose the Boys Ranch over the years, but without success. Requests for proposals attracted organizations that local neighbors and communities opposed so near their homes, and other proposals that didn't work out due to high startup costs, and the submitters opted out of the discussions. Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive is seeking a minimum 5-year lease to repurpose a portion of the Boys Ranch. Their mission is to provide behavioral and rehabilitative programs, foster care, and rescue support for shelter dogs in the Sacramento area to improve and sustain a high live release rate. Initially, SSPA would house 65 dogs on site, but their 4-year goal will be to have up to 150 kennels. The site will include multiple outdoor play yards, buildings to house dogs, an adoption center, business offices, and a behavioral training room. Funding will depend on fundraisers, scholarships, grants, private donations, and SSPA is also requesting annual funding support from the Sacramento County Animal Care and Regulation. The unique mission of the SSPA seems to accommodate the neighbors' preferences. On April 5th, as I've done on previous negotiations, I sent letters to the local communities and landowners describing the mission. I received one response back from the Cordova Hills LLC, which was a very positive response for the SSPA initiative. And just within the last week, we received requests from the Cosumnes CPAC asking to schedule an initiative, schedule this initiative on a future CPAC agenda for discussion. So I worked with our planning staff, and we were able to get scheduled to meet with the CPAC tomorrow night, and I'll be sure to report back to the board on the results of those discussions. So considering the distinctive and positive venture the SSPA is offering, staff recommends the board approval to proceed with discussions with the SSPA regarding a potential lease agreement. At this time, I would like to introduce Delise Ganaway. She's the Executive Director of SSPA, and she can answer any questions you may have about the program. Delise?
Does anyone have any questions at this point?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question for me?
Thanks, Mike.
Hi, thank you for the consideration to bring life back to the Boys Ranch with Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive. Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'm Delise Ganaway.
Thank you.
Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive, it was originated after and it's modeled after Austin Pets Alive in Austin, Texas, which is a program that supports the Austin Animal Shelter and has brought their live release rate up to 98% through the behavioral and rehabilitation work that they do out at Austin Pets Alive. Currently, Sacramento County Animal Shelter has been at a 90%, and we've held that strong for the last several months. One of the reasons that we've been able to do that, I'm sure you've been aware that we've been stagnant in the 80s for some time. Due to a robust foster program, we've been able to get it up to the high 80s, and recently to the 90%. And I think that we can attribute that to a behavioral program that's been working out there for some time with PB-SOC. They're responsible for the play groups, and they do quite a bit of work with the shelter dogs who are struggling. So we have quite a few rehab dogs that are being worked by these group of individuals. And in order to bring our live release rate up from the 90%, we are going to need more space. The shelter can't accommodate the numbers that we have right now when we're in the 180s. We need time and we need space, and that's what the Boys Ranch is going to allow us to be able to do with the Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ancelli?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I want to thank Mike Morris, certainly Delise. I know we have Dave Dickinson here, our Animal Care Regulation Director, and I want to thank Dave Villanueva and Rob Leonard for their assistance as well. We've been talking about this for a number of months, and I think to the point Delise made that working in concert with certainly with shelter staff, but with our volunteers and with the Sacramento Shelter Pets Alive, which has been preceded by the PB-SOC organization. We hope to sustain the 90%, but to do better than that. And part of that is to have some ability over a longer bit of time to work with the rehab and socialization of a number of the shelter dogs in particular. And I think the Boys Ranch, again, as this board's aware, and certainly Mike covered in his report, has had several different proposals. Some have been very controversial. Others have, because of other things that intervened, have not really grabbed hold. But I think the opportunity here, working with this organization, certainly they have a number of folks in the audience, I think, today that are part of the effort. The ability to repurpose at least a portion within the confines of the original facilities there to do something that will help our shelter and certainly animals and certainly the people of this county by, I think, having sustainable efforts to not only help the animals but help get permanent placement for them over time. And I want to, again, certainly thank Delise, thank Mike, thank Dave and folks for the interest, and I think what brings us here today. And as Mr. Morris explained, with a very quick accommodation, tomorrow night at the CPAC, we'll have a presentation to them and continue the outreach. But I think it has the prospects to be very promising. And I would just also note that in a few weeks, in early June, several of us are going to go visit Austin Pets Alive and the Austin public facility to talk with their folks to get further information about how they coordinate and collaborate to not only have the sustained live release rate, but to have good outcomes for animals. And I think this is a real positive. And I know that the Boys Ranch has been dormant for some years, and certainly has been maintained in a state that would allow for some accommodations such as this. And so I just think it has a lot of promise. And I want to I know again we obviously got to go through the negotiation process, but there's detail to be worked out yet. But I think this could be something very good for Sacramento County, for our shelter pets and animals, but also I think for the entire region. So I want to just encourage our folks to continue to work together. And I don't know if you have other testimony, but I'm certainly willing to move the staff recommendation when we're concluded with the hearing.
We have a couple of speakers who signed up. You may be seated.
Okay, thank you.
Linda Bischoff, then Jennifer Garcia, and Lisa Blackketter. We do have a 3-minute limit.
Okay, I'm Linda Bischoff. Thank you for allowing us to speak. I just wanted to let you know I've been with the program about 2 years, and I've truly seen miracles happen there. You'll have animals brought in that are labeled aggressive or, you know, unable to train, etc. And with this program, within a very short period of time, you would see a dog out there in a play group being a dog and being able to go home. It's amazing work, it's cutting edge, and I believe it's only going to get better with this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Garcia.
Hello, thank you.
Morning, Jennifer.
I just wanted to say that I'm Jennifer Garcia, and I'm a volunteer at the Sac County Shelter. I've volunteered at a few shelters around Sacramento, and this is the first one that I've seen a program like this. It's amazing, and I've seen firsthand the positive impact and the countless lives saved because of the PB SOC program at the Sac County Shelter. It only makes sense that we support something this great. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Blackketter.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm a volunteer for PB SOC. I've been with PB SOC since before its inception with Sacramento County, and I've had a really unique opportunity to grow as an individual, but also to see the program evolve. And I think that, like Jennifer, I have had experiences volunteering in other places. And the dogs that come through this program excel in the program. They are coming in, they're timid, it's a scared environment. They can go into these play groups. Unlike any other shelter around the area has play groups at this evolved level. To kind of dial back, years ago when we first started, our idea of allowing dogs to interact and to play was to do parallel walks where they walked side by side. And I'm not sure if you've seen some of the news video footage of what we have now, but the capacity is so much greater. It's very evolved, and we continue to be progressive because of a leader like Delise Ganaway. I think that we've all seen, sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
No, don't be nervous. Everybody's looking at you from behind, but you're all right.
So. We've all seen the news advertisements lately for how full the shelter is. And I think that we've also seen the advertisements that Sacramento County is really taking animal cruelty seriously and not being involved in the intricacies of that plan. At a surface level, it seems that they've missed quite a lot of steps as far as making sure that the management plan for those animals is available at a behavioral capacity within the shelter. It's very difficult to find fosters for those types of animals, and they end up sitting in those kennels for 24 hours a day for months at a time. And a program like this would allow them to be worked on a more deep level that would really facilitate and take on the needs that they have during that time. So I think it's really important for animals that are fitting into a very gray area at this time. So for that reason, I hope that you guys will consider this, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there? Okay. All right, back to the board then. Is there a motion?
Yes. Madam Chair, I would move that we approve the staff recommendation, and I guess we'll the authority to negotiate. I would just, one final comment if I could, making a motion that I think this certainly would allow that campus to potentially evolve in a way out there that it would sustain a high live release rate, but I think really be a model for, as I said, for this region, and hopefully rival Austin someday in what we do. And we're often compared, when we do things here. So, Mike, I guess, is there anything else you need? I'm going to move the staff recommendation. Is there anything you want to supplement with?
No, sir, I have nothing further.
Second.
Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Next item, please.
Item 58, authorization to reduce project scope for the Rio Consumnes Correctional Center, Senate Bill 1022 project.
Chair Peters, members of the board, Today we are seeking the board's review and approval to reduce the scope of the Rio Cosumnes Correctional Center Senate Bill 1022 project and authorize the Director of General Services or designee to act as a signatory authority for all SB 1022 program documents, including any necessary non-monetary changes, modifications, or amendments. Since the approval of the original staffing plan and operating cost statement and the life cycle cost analysis in July 2017, General Services and our contract consultants have had to update the construction cost estimates several times and found that trends in the construction industry have dramatically altered the bidding environment both locally and across the country. The impact of these trends have resulted in a steady and continuing increase in the cost of construction. Today, in order to absorb a potential $13 million increase in costs, the Sheriff's Department, General Services, and the project consultant team investigated a number of options for scope reductions to offset the budget overages, yet not affect the new program spaces that were the basis of the original scope and intent of the SB 1022 funding program. Through these scope reduction exercises, the most logical deletion was the food service facility. Deleting this one portion of the project can bring the project within budget and allow the new program portions of the project scope to be constructed as originally intended. This includes replacement of outdated medical beds, new mental health beds, enhanced rehabilitative services, a replacement laundry, and a new intake transfer unit, all vital programs and facilities necessary to meet the volume of intake and transfers that the RCCC now experiences. Project construction is still hoped to start in November of 2018 with an estimated move-in date in November of 2020. With that brief introduction, I do have staff from the Sheriff and General Services here to answer any questions you may have.
Before you leave, Mr. Natoli has a question.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions, Mike, and again, you may have to hand these off, but in preparing for today's hearings, I went back and reviewed the material from July 25th of last year when we heard this, and certainly accepting the explanation about increasing costs. I get that. In fact, if I average that out over the past 10 months, then it's basically $1.3 million a month and projected increases. But I guess the challenge that I'm going to put up to the folks that have yet to present today is that when we sat in these chambers 10 months ago, we had a presentation that went through the various elements, including what you just described, obviously the mental health beds, improvements to the central plant, and other facilities out there, including the area for the folks that come visit the visitor center and parking and so forth. But in reviewing the tapes, the tape of the meeting, some of the language that was used relative to the facility for food preparation is that it was literally falling apart. That ceiling tiles were falling, the pipes, mildew was the language that was used. And there was this whole new concept of the cook-chill model that we were going to go to. It included improvements that I know Jeff Gasaway's in the audience, but he responded to some of the improvements that were being held off on downtown that would accommodate having food on hand that would be prepared days in advance, and quite a bit of discussion about the staffing. But what really got my attention, and I guess the question that I think needs to be answered, and I don't know whether folks are prepared to answer today or not, at the conclusion of the hearing, and including charts that were there, that it said it was going to, if we didn't include the kitchen facility as a part of that, we had $2 million that had to be expended fairly immediately, that's my word, but in order to do the Band-Aid, and that those costs might actually be based upon a meeting that occurred just prior to the July 25th, 2017 meeting, that those might be escalated to $12 million just to Band-Aid and to keep the facility operational. And then the comment in another breath was, if we didn't do it with this grant, we were going to have to use county general funds. Now, I don't know if that reference was to fixed asset monies or not. But I guess I need to know, because the analysis that was here, Mike, does not give us any background. I get cost escalation, and I was one who obviously had questions, and I questioned some of the folks that are here today about that relative staffing, to electrical costs, to life cycle costs. But I'm telling you, folks stood at that podium and made this strong case for why we had to replace the kitchen facilities. I need to know how then it became the highest priority for being cut. And that's my question, and that's my statement. And so, whoever wants to field it, come on up.
And I'm sure there'll be...
Yeah, they're all leaping up.
Don't be shy. And I think it really came down to is recognizing that there would have to be Band-Aids on that facilities. It really came down to we had to spare the core programs, and on balance is something had to be cut if we were going to proceed, and this was the least of the evils, if you will. But Jeff, you might be able to add.
But I don't know that Jeff got saying. Jeff wasn't one who was making the case. So just you jumped up to answer the question, but
yeah.
So the urgency, though, was projected 10 months ago, and that we were going to have to spend $2 million right away. How's that rolled into this consideration? And then there was this number of $12 million that was thrown out as well. Now, I don't know what's changed, and if we're going to continue to use baling wire and bubble gum to keep this together out there, but I can tell you there was a lot of emphasis on this piece of it, recognizing the lesser of the evils. And so, again, Jeff, I don't expect you to, but so what's going to happen? We cut this out. We haven't budgeted for any of those improvements out there that I'm aware of, and if that's been a change, I guess that's what I need to know. It's gotten a year older.
Jeff Gasso, General Services. To answer your question, Supervisor Natoli, we are going to have to make some significant investments in both the downtown main jail kitchen and the RCCC kitchen to be able to provide services. We currently, in next year's CIP, have a couple different projects that will start that process. We have some in this fiscal year, replacing the dishwasher down here in the main jail, refrigeration systems in both kitchens in the future. The reduction through discussions with the group is to keep programs moving forward. It's also to get a new laundry and laundry equipment. Over the last couple of years, we've had several fires in the current laundry. So that's going to bring us new technology and hopefully reduce some of our expense in water, electricity, and in the laundry. It gives us much newer equipment to keep up with the load there. So. And just to kind of let you know, since May of 2014, when we started this project, the construction costs have increased 33% due to the economy, natural disasters that have happened in California, and we're really having a hard time finding contractors to bid on a lot of our projects. So that plays into it as well. So.
But Jeff, I guess, again, it wasn't you making a presentation. Dave Torgerson, who's now retired on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, made most of the presentation. You answered some of the questions regarding electrical costs. Again, I'm going to emphasize what was said to this board, again, recognizing we didn't know where we were going to be relative to costs, and so I accept that piece of it. But there was this whole emphasis about this cook-chill model that we were going to gravitate to, and that was going to necessarily didn't have savings in staffing, because we talked about that. But I mean, they said the kitchen was falling apart. It wasn't refrigeration. It was, that was what was said. And there was a $2 million price tag. And it wasn't your chart that was up there. The Sheriff's Department put up there. We're getting $2 million now. And it might be $12 million. And again, that was kind of left on the open-ended of it. If that's the case, so how is a parking lot or central control station, I get why those things are important, from staffing and so forth into the operations of RCCC. But how do those, again, I have no idea what the analysis, we got a 3-page staff report of what it went through that said, with escalating costs that have gone up $1.3 million a month over what we saw a year ago. how those things continue to rank as a higher priority than the kitchen that was falling apart that's 20 years old, and you're feeding 400 inmates at a time. I mean, there was this whole descriptor. Again, you folks didn't make the presentation that are here today, it was others, but again, I guess I just need, for the purposes of today, I'm not prepared to support this until I have more information, and I don't expect you on the fly, Jeff, to have to respond to this. But, you know, you made the case. I'm a believer, so somebody needs to persuade me otherwise.
The question I was asking was, what latitude do we have in continuing this item? And Jeff is saying that we have a schedule that we got to follow, and I think he can answer it. Jeff?
Yeah, we need the board, our board, to pass this item in order to make the, is it the June 1st agenda? June 7th agenda for the Public Works Board to get the plans and specs approved so we can move forward, or for them to hear the scope reduction. To answer your question, I don't know that it's going to be $12 million for the RCCC kitchen to keep it going, the current kitchen. But either way, with the cook-chill kitchen or not doing the cook-chill kitchen, we're going to need to make a significant investment in the downtown jail for retherm with the cook-chill kitchen, reducing the scope. I think we can use that money, that future money that we would have had to do that, to reinvest in both kitchens and keep them working. I've got the commander for the main RCCC to answer any other questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hello, board. I'm Matt Peterson. I'm the captain at RCCC. I sense your frustration. I'm also somewhat frustrated. I was involved with the initial application award of this funding. The reality is we still need improvements to our kitchen at RCCC. We examined the whole thing. It was a collaborative effort, as said. The scope, the purpose for the award was really geared towards the service and reentry services and those types of
mental
services.
Health, the health,
and
yes.
Mental health, and truly, we have to maintain that. This increase in cost that we were given, it was so substantial that we had to select the food service area in order to make that savings. We looked at trying to look at smaller pieces, and there just wasn't enough savings by cutting out different things at the priority level.
So, Matt, if I could, just to follow on, again, we didn't have any of that analysis included as part of our staff report. So again, not that, that obviously Architectural Services, Sheriff's Department, and our consultants are going to do that. But again, I bring it back to, when the point was made here about this, we have escalating costs, and nobody's told me, and Jeff had mentioned at the hearing last year that you're going to need to do some things with refrigeration downtown. That was a $500,000 price tag, if I recall from the conversation that on the transcript or tape. But I don't have a clue where this range of $2 to $12 million is going to come from, and yet the point was made that was kind of falling down around people's ears, and so are we using county general funds? Is it fixed asset? That was the point that was made. That was actually said at the podium. And again, it wasn't you, Matt, and it wasn't Jeff that said that. But and when I think about architecturally, at that point we spent $7.5 million just on the architectural piece of this. I don't know what we've accumulated now. 10 months later, what have we spent? $10 million. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on this, and we haven't, turned a bit of ground on this yet.
Chris, do you have the number on what we spent so far?
So where's the funding going to come through? So where, you said some savings, where is the funding come through to keep that facility, and what's going to say that a year from now somebody's not going to say that things are just terribly bad, because it doesn't get any better. You keep it going. It was 20 years old there, and it's 21 years old this year. What is, I don't see the solution for the kitchen facilities at this point in time.
I think the solution will be programming those pieces of equipment and infrastructure that are failing into our 5-year capital improvement plan going forward, and those dollars would come from the capital construction fund at that point.
Yeah, have you?
I think the question is, I mean, what I'm getting is that if we do this over a period of time, are we still at $13 million?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to put it in the capital construction fund, how much will it cost?
I can't answer that question at this point in time.
If we put this over till 2 o'clock, could you answer that question?
I think, you know, for our CCC, you're looking at anywhere between $3 to $5 million over a period of probably the next 7 years. Downtown, we're in a lot better shape downtown because we've done some significant improvements in boilers, and we're replacing the dishwasher this year. So I think, you know, downtown probably over the next 7 years, you may be looking at $2 to $3 million.
Plus the $5 million
at our CCC. So you're talking $8 million over probably 7 years.
Mr. County Executive, do you have a comment?
No, I think the question that Supervisor Natoli is asking is that we got to do something with the kitchen. That's what we were told back in July of 17. And as we go forward, what Jeff's illustrating is that it's going to come out of the capital construction fund. That means some other project we're going to have to delay or not do that project. That will be priority number one for us, is if that's where we end up. Second question Supervisor Natoli asked is, are we going to use general fund money? And we do not have that kind of resource. We just do not. So it's going to have to come back to the capital construction and the CIP discussion to see what projects then are delayed or deleted from it.
So other things get pushed back. I mean, that's the way, you know, again, we, you know, just completed a re-roof over there, which was, you know, expensive, and, you know, in the main jail, and we, you know, so other departments that have lesser means end up getting pushed back.
That is correct. That's the trade-off. And one other thing, I don't know if we could do it. I mean, we could pursue grants. We'll continue looking for other revenue source, but most likely I do not want to mislead the board. It will be out of the capital construction fund, realizing that general fund's not going to be put into this mix.
I guess I just wonder if you, remodeling versus new construction, and sometimes remodeling ends up becoming an annual affair, even though there's a plan, and it just never quite catches up to it. I mean, I don't want to get in the position of authorizing a $13 million over the budget expenditure, but I don't really have enough information from General Services to make an informed decision about this. I don't know how I can get that.
Let's continue till 2. Let us have some more discussion, and particularly what I'm interested in is the deadline is June 7th. We are going to have some budget. We're in session prior to that. I'm not necessarily saying this should be part of the budget discussion, but a separate item after we get done with the budget to have this discussion.
That might be helpful, and I think we ought to see a list of items that are going to be constructed at our CCC and see if we think there's a better cut. If you
understood, yeah. So let us try to.
I guess I'd rather put a parking lot in 1 year at a time than a kitchen that should last. The last ones last 50 years or something.
Madam Chair.
Oh.
I'd like to add to that, if you're coming back at 2 o'clock, that I'm hearing you state clearly that the general fund is not what we're talking about. So the universe of potential funding does not include the general fund, just because there's nothing there to really consider. So that gives me a little bit of comfort. However, when we come back at 2, if that's indeed what we're going to do, I would like to understand what is the universe of near-term capital projects that, if you're asking us to prioritize and make difficult decisions in the universe of capital projects, what are some of those other capital projects outside of the jail that would be affected by this decision? I think that's fair.
Yep. That's
now, are you saying you want to come back at 2 to talk about that, or put it off till June 7th?
Can we go till June 7th? That's your deadline, right?
Yeah, we can go until June 7th.
When we go, we'll do budget on Tuesday, and then Wednesday after we get done with budget, we'll bring this item, we'll put this on the agenda and discuss it at that point with all full analysis about capital projects, what do we need to do. And you will hear a lot about capital projects when we go into the budget anyway. That'll frame this issue a little bit better for you.
And that's fine with me. I think that's fine with all of us, but get some more information.
Okay.
Okay, so we will, I need a motion to continue.
So moved.
June 7th. Do we need a time since it's budget?
It'll be,
We can do.
we're just going to continue to that date. We'll
Okay.
figure the time out on the
All
budget.
right, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Before we recess, we have one off-agenda speaker, Cynthia K. Sperling. Are you here? We have a 3-minute limit, Ms. Sperling.
Thank you. Okay, I'm here to talk to you about the growing number of seniors that are homeless. There are not programs that are designed to help seniors. Seniors are finding themselves without any sort of housing. It takes 1 to 9 years to get in subsidized housing. I've been homeless since February 1st. I've been to the boat. I've been here, but I've also been to the city and talked to them about it. You have 2 programs, Sacramento Step Forward, which does nothing to help seniors find housing. All they do is stuff them in small rooms in large groups, no option to cook, no option to take out. They don't help at all. They don't help you look for an apartment. They put me in touch with Volunteers of America, who put me in Winter Sanctuary. I got pneumonia. I ended up in the hospital because it was so ill-equipped to handle seniors. I've also been in touch with SHIRA. SHIRA is a wait program. I've been in touch with them since January. I have just recently received an application, 22 pages long. It cost me $200 to get all the forms necessary to turn into them. I received that, got it back to them. They should have received it on the 15th. On the 19th, I received another application emailed. They keep saying they're going to send something. They mail me absolutely nothing. Sacramento County needs to do something for seniors, or you're going to have more like me out there. We need someplace we can go to, which is going to provide us with someplace to live. Subsidized housing is too slim. There's too few people. Legal aid tells you essentially to shut up and sit down. Fair housing essentially tells you to shut up and sit down. Human resource informs you, unless you have dependent children, they don't want to help you. So something needs to be done to help seniors that are now finding themselves on the street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to put her in touch with someone?
Yeah, I'm going to get her contact information.
Okay, so Ms. Sperling, if you could not leave just yet, and the county executive will get contact information.
You got that, I'll get
for
you
you.
information.
It's on my slip that I turned in.
Oh, it is? Okay, perfect, I got it then.
Well, there's no telephone, though, so.
Yeah.
Let's, any further discussion here? Okay, we will recess and be back at 2 o'clock.
Closed session.
Closed session, yeah, sorry.